For ages, we've been obsessed with Mars, but now our relationship with the red planet is changing fast. We're going from just looking to landing, and now to bringing a piece of it back home. And while we often think of NASA leading the charge, a new player has joined the game in deep space, moving with, well, breathtaking speed. Today, we're diving into China's incredible ambitions for Mars.
So, what's the next great prize in space exploration? It's not just about putting humans somewhere new, it's about being the first to grab rocks from Mars and bring them all the way back to Earth. And right now, a new dynamic is unfolding. You've got NASA's long planned mission, which is running into some delays and budget hurdles. And then you have China's Tianwen-3, which is on a seriously aggressive timeline, aiming for a 2018 launch and a return just 3 years later. This is about more than just rocks. It's about scientific prestige and who's leading the way in technology.
So, how did we even get to this point? We're going to trace China's journey to the red planet. First, we'll look at their absolutely groundbreaking first mission. Then we'll get into the details of the ultimate prize, bringing back those Martian samples. We'll also break down the ridiculously complex plan to pull that off, see how Mars fits into a much bigger cosmic strategy, and finally ask what all of this means for the future of space exploration for, well, all of us. Okay, so to really understand where China is going, you have to look at what they've already done. And their very first mission to another planet, Tianwen-1, was an incredible success. It didn't just get to Mars, it completely rewrote the playbook on what a first try could look like. And it all starts with the name, which tells you a lot. Tianwen, or Tianwen, translates to questions to heaven. This name comes from a famous ancient poem, and it really captures this deep cultural spirit of looking up at the cosmos and just relentlessly searching for answers. It's a really powerful mission statement for their whole planetary program. And the mission itself, it was executed with just remarkable precision. It launched in July 2020, and after a 7-month journey through deep space, it slipped perfectly into Mars orbit in February 2021. But honestly, the hardest part was yet to come: the landing. That happened just a few months later in May. And this, right here, is what is so mind-blowing about Tianwen-1. Think about it. No other country had ever managed to orbit, land, and drive a rover on Mars all in its very first attempt. I mean, usually, those are 3 totally separate, incredibly difficult goals you try to achieve over many years in missions. By pulling off this cosmic hat trick in one go, China showed a massive leap in its capabilities, instantly putting itself in the absolute top tier of space exploration. So once on the surface, the star of the show was the Zhurong rover, named for an ancient god of fire. This thing, weighing about 240 kilos, was loaded with instruments, including a ground-penetrating radar to hunt for water ice under the surface. And with its successful deployment, China became only the second country in history, after the US, to operate a rover on Mars. So after pulling off that historic success, you might think the China National Space Administration would take a little break, right? Nope. They are now aiming for something even more audacious. They're going back to Mars to get what is, without a doubt, the ultimate souvenir, an actual piece of the planet. But why go through all this incredible trouble? Well, it's all to try and answer one of the biggest questions we can ask. Was there ever life on Mars? Rovers are amazing, but to really look for definitive proof, signs of past or present life, you need to get those rocks and that soil into the most advanced labs we have right here on Earth. That is the #1 reason for the Tianwen-3 mission. So what are they hoping to find? It really boils down to 3 big things. First, and this is the big one, the search for life. Looking for things like biomarkers or maybe even tiny fossils. Second, the samples will help us figure out how Mars went from being this potentially warm, wet world to the frozen desert it is today. And third, they'll give us this incredible, unprecedented look into the planet's geology, from its surface right down to its core. And they have a very specific goal in mind: to bring back at least 500 grams, about a pound, of Martian stuff. This isn't just surface dirt either. They plan to drill down to get samples from beneath the surface, which is crucial because those deeper samples are protected from harsh radiation and might have the best shot at preserving any ancient organic clues. And get this, the target date for this special delivery is around 2031. If they pull this off, it would be an absolutely monumental achievement. They could potentially have the first ever pristine samples from Mars in the hands of scientists before anyone else. Okay, so how in the world do you actually do this? A Mars sample return is widely considered one of the most difficult things anyone has ever tried to do in space. In some ways, it's even more complex than the Apollo moon landings. It's like a deep space relay race where every handoff has to be perfect, millions of miles away. Let's just walk through how insane this is. First, you have to land and collect the samples. Easy enough to say, but wow. Then a whole separate rocket, an ascender, has to launch off of Mars to get those samples into orbit. Up there, an orbiter has to find and meet up with this tiny little spacecraft, grab the sample container, and then fire its own engines to start the long trip home. I mean, every single one of these steps is a full-blown mission in itself. Now, to get this whole, cosmic Rube Goldberg machine to Mars in the first place, it's not a single shot. The plan needs 2 different launches from Earth in 2028, both using their heavy-lift Long March 5 rocket. One rocket sends the lander and ascender, the other sends the orbiter and the return vehicle. The whole thing, from launch to getting those samples back, is going to take over 3 years. But here's the thing. As wild as these Mars missions are, they aren't the whole story. Not even close. Tianwen-3 is actually just one critical piece of a much bigger, much more methodical, long-term plan for China's presence across the solar system.
This quote from President Xi Jinping, which you can find in China's official space program white paper, really frames it perfectly. Space exploration is a core piece of their national strategy. It's called an eternal dream to build China into a space power, which connects these missions directly to national development and, of course, global leadership in science and technology.
And when you lay out their roadmap, you can see just how deliberate this all is. It's a clear, step-by-step plan. Tianwen-1 proved they could get to Mars and operate there. Next up, Tianwen-2, launching around 2025, is basically a practice run for sample return, but on an easier target, a near-Earth asteroid. Then, they take that experience and apply it to the main event, the Mars sample return with Tianwen-3. And after that, they're already planning Tianwen-4 to go to Jupiter and Uranus. It's just this methodical, escalating mastery of new capabilities. So what does all of this rapid rise in deep space mean for everybody else? Well, it signals a really fundamental shift in the world of planetary science. It opens up all sorts of new possibilities for both competition and, maybe surprisingly, for cooperation. Now, even though it feels a bit like a race, China has also been very clear about inviting others to the party. They've actually offered space for international instruments on the Tianwen-3 mission, and they've publicly said that the Martian samples they bring back will be available for scientists around the globe to study. For researchers anywhere, the chance to get their hands on pristine material from another planet it's a dream come true, no matter who brings it back. And that leaves us with this one final, really important question. This quest for Mars is pushing science and technology to the absolute edge. As we keep going, this dynamic between national pride and global partnership is going to define the future. So, will our next huge discoveries be the result of a heated race to the finish line, or will they come from us working together to unlock the secrets of the universe? The answer to that is really going to write the next chapter of our story in space.